Joseph Downing is a senior lecturer in politics and international relations at Aston University and a visiting fellow at the LSE's European Institute. He joins us now live from London. Joseph, thanks for being with us. The European leaders saying it's a call to action and fighting for their own. It's a real show of unity that we've seen by the European leaders, but still quite a lot of uncertainty over how this path to peace will be achieved.
No, completely. I mean, and this has been the problem with European leaders and European defence and security long before the war in Ukraine, but has been highlighted, unfortunately, by this terrible full military invasion that's cost the lives of hundreds of thousands on both sides. It really is a case that demonstrates that old saying that in war there are no winners, only losers. Clearly, both sides are not going to come out of this in a particularly good position. But the problem is, Europe can talk strong on defence, but can it actually act strong? Right. So this is something that even as far back as 2019, Trump, during his first administration, was quite clear to European leaders that they cannot no longer free ride off of American security, the American security umbrella for Europe, i.e. NATO, with the US spending, a larger portion of GDP than most of its European allies. Now, European allies have made commitments to increase defence spending in light of the war in Ukraine, but much of this hasn't really translated into much concrete procurement. It hasn't translated into the development of a stronger European military-industrial complex. It hasn't resulted in, the rivalries that still exist on the European continent in terms of defence production between, say, for example, the British and the French, in terms of building, future generations of fighter jets, really being put to one side either. So, there is so much here before we even look at the complexities of the situation on the ground in Ukraine and what kind of peace may be acceptable to both sides, what kind of peace, can be put in place, whether Zelenskyy still has a mandate to enforce what could be a very unpopular peace settlement on the Ukrainian people if he does give territory for peace, what position this will put Vladimir Putin in. I mean, there is so much uncertainty here and so much still to be done, but we can take, I think, some reassurance that this is somewhat of a cautious, positive step forward.
Yes, and I want to take you back to that point on defence spending, because just how difficult is that going to be? I mean, we've seen these big calls that there needs to be, there's been, as you say, action. They've been galvanised into action to really recognise that a boost in defence spending is needed. But where is that money going to come from? Because surely within Europe, raising taxes is going to be unpopular, given many European countries are among the highest taxed in the world.
Precisely, and I mean, this is what we've seen in the UK in the past week has been the pivot from foreign aid in terms of government spending to putting that money into the defence budget, which I don't think has been in any way unpopular here in the UK. But one thing that is interesting, exactly as you say, is that European citizens are already struggling with inflation, of cost of living crisis. They're buckling under the weight of an extremely high tax burden. So where will this money come from? Many in America on the right that are very pro-gun and pro-defense will say, if you mess with America, you will see why we don't have free healthcare. And what they mean by that is you will see why welfare spending in the US is low. The safety net that we have in Europe does not exist, and the money goes, amongst other things, on defence. And these are some of the difficult choices that European leaders have as the continent moves ahead, especially as the European population continues to age, in terms of how do they satisfy both needs. It's the classic, in international relations, we call it the gun versus butter dilemma, right? Do you spend on guns or do you spend on social welfare? And European leaders not only are being pressed to do both, but as democratically elected leaders, they're also under pressure to promise both to their voters. And this is one of those sort of key weaknesses, in a sense, of democracy, is that, voters won't stand for that. In an autocracy like Vladimir Putin's Russia, you can wind down welfare spending, you can impoverish people to fight a costly, unjust and horrific war overseas. And there's frankly not much that people can do. If you're Emmanuel Macron, if you're Keir Starmer, if you're, as has just been seen, Olaf Scholz in Germany, you can be punished at the ballot box and removed from power. And I think this is really going to be a difficult moment in Europe to consider kind of how can we reinvent the European systems to be able to really do both, right? To do better with welfare and to do better with defence. It's not going to be easy at all.
Joseph Downing, Senior Lecturer in Politics and International Relations at Aston University, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you.